Views and opinions expressed on the following program are those of the commentators, guest, and host. They do not explicitly or necessarily reflect nor represent the policy or the views held by Tobago Updates or this network. Tobago Updates or this network cannot be held accountable for all or any views expressed during this program.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Vox Populi with yours truly, Barrington Thomas. Now, citizens of the Republic, tonight we will discuss three matters. I trust that I'm being heard clearly and so. Tonight we'll discuss three matters. We're going to discuss Massey. We're going to discuss the murders in Tobago, and we are going to also discuss the 2 years anniversary of the Executive Council of the Tobago House of Assembly. We're going to discuss those matters. Which one to start with? I don't know. Let's start with Massey. Now, Trinidad and Tobago is and have always been a very superstitious, very, very superstitious country. I don't know how much of you remember Patrick Manning and the PNM. They won an election by saying, quote, Robinson put the dragon on the Red House to kill poor people. And to underscore and lend legitimacy to their nonsense, what they did was call me Bert as Minister of Works in the Manning's administration. They went midnight with a tower crane and so to take down the dragon, what they loosely call the dragon, to replace it with a avian fetish, a dove and white dove and so. Around election time, and I challenge all media personnel, when you're interviewing politicians around election time, get a Bible and ask them to swear on the Bible and ask them if they ever take a bush bath. Then you had, of course, you remember him, Shamari Hector, in height and in flight of remonstrating reasons why we ought to vote for the PNM. He was arrested by the Holy Spirit, and then he started chastising his own colleagues. And he accused them, of course, of blood and sea sacrifice and so. One preacher, during the height of the THA election, had to call out those in the PNM and their candidates and so, punching and others, call them out and suggested to them and rebuked them and so, and told them to disassociate and disengage from engaging in black magic and necromancy and so. Are we therefore surprised that a shareholder rather, from the Massey group of companies who have 2,689 shares there, so that is 2 million something and 20 something million value, and so she has in ownership of the organization, expressed that officials from Massey, the executives and so, they go to Miami and engage in weird rituals and so. The more it unfolds, it's discovered that they engage in white light seances and so, white light healing and seances and so. They communicate with the dead. Now, if this wasn't serious, it certainly would have been laughable. Very, very laughable if this was not serious. Because it tells why, as a country, our production levels and our progress are retarded the way they are retarded. Because superstitions clearly is the order of the day. It would explain why the medical practitioners have such grave difficulty in treating with non-communicable diseases and sexually transmitted diseases. Because the realities are that a bush bath can't cure AIDS or syphilis. It is caused by a virus. Syphilis and herpes and HIV is not the works of gremlins and duendes and lajables. It is caused by a virus. And those people who are so engaged and entrenched in superstition, their children will never be mathematicians and scientists and so, working in Bill Gates, Microsoft, or the Silicon Valley in the United States, where the most scientific minds are available to engage in productivity. So, in addition to that, my dear friends, in addition to that, right, in addition to that, superstition ought not to be confused with traditions. Right? Superstition ought not to be confused with traditions. In Tobago, for example, we are properly entrenched in West African traditions. And that is why we do things in very unique and spectacular way, properly embraced and taught and rolled out and explained through the Heritage Festival, which in my respectful view, led by the cultural officer to Jesse Taylor, and they do good work. So there are some cultural antecedents that ought not to be confused with superstitions, and there are some superstitions that ought not to be confused with cultural antecedents. I mean, for example, I'll give you some homework, and I'll leave this question to you. I have here this lamp. Yes, I have this lamp. And if you look discerningly in it, you will see some paper and thing, and there are some things I put in it and so. And I'll tell you, but before I tell you that, you all know these lamps, these pitch oil lamps. Well, these lamps, you remember long ago, the older folks, those of our ancestors, the old people and them, they used to put, the red beans in it, we call jumbie beans, the red and black, small, pretty looking beans, yeah. Now, many may wish to attach superstition to putting the jumbie beans in it, in the pitch oil in the lamp. But the truth is, and the science will confirm, that all the beans did was to assist with the, what is the thing they call, with the, not necessarily desalination, but desalination is the word I want to use. So it assists with the purification and the oxygen of the fuel and the irrigate. That is what it does. So before they light it, they'll hold it and they'll stir it. So it assists with the irrigation and that sort of thing of the fuel. And it aids with good burning, and it reduces the soot. So there's a scientific reasons for doing it. But those unable to explain it have attached immaculate superstitions to it. But I'll tell you why I'm saying all of this. Or I was making the point earlier. So you'll see some paper, a piece of paper in here. But that piece of paper is Sophia Choate and others I have inside here. Yes. And when I'm ready to light them, I will light them. So, Massey. So you expect those things from persons with cultural background. But when the rich and powerful is jetting off to Miami with millions of very scarce and precious foreign exchange to engage in speaking with the dead and white light and bush bats and so, that is cause for concern. So your superstition and or your cultural antecedents must be unique to you, it must be personal to you, and it must certainly be at your expense and to no detriment or disadvantage of another. However, when scarce foreign reserves is being used in the tune of millions, because those who wish to get foreign exchange, so they could travel to Miami for bush bath and seance and white light treatments and lighting black candle and drinking sheep and goat blood and so. There must be some priority by government. Because those of us who know and understand well, because we are studying at foreign universities, in some cases online purely, in some cases blended, so part online, you must travel to the UK, the US, some parts of Europe, because there are some parts of the curriculum that require you to write the exam on campus. There are some things you have to do on campus. There are some projects you have to engage on campus. Plus your fees, nonetheless, it have to be paid in foreign exchange, whether it be euros, US, or pounds. But when you go to the bank, when we go to the bank, they say, no, they don't have that. You have to go to the bank early in the morning and get a limited amount. So if you're due to go off to Spain, London, or New York, or Washington, to be part of your blended program in your, as the blended syllabus that requires you to go on camp, as part of your blended schedule and so, you have to start to hustle US pounds or euros months before, so you could accumulate what you need to go. That cannot be right. That just cannot be right. But then again, who is in control of the foreign exchange reserves? It is the government, led by Keith Rowley. Some would argue it's the central bank. Who appoints the central bank governor? It is the government, led by Keith Rowley. And you all remember Keith Rowley. Out of everything he could have said, Patrick Manning suffered a very serious stroke. The stroke maimed him till his death. He ailed, he agonized, he was in pain, he was in suffering and so. And what was Keith Rowley's response to that? His response to that is that he's from Mason Hall, and Mason Hall is very close to Lecato. And so he did that to Patrick Manning. So politicians will always stand guilty of necromancy and so. Businessmen in their private encamp and so, yeah. But when state resources, when foreign exchange that is so scarce, is with people who have medical ailments to deal with in foreign territories, unable to get, they're unable to get foreign exchange to deal with illness, education, their children upkeep in foreign universities and so. Sometimes just for a little vacation, you can't get. But Rowley, who is from Mason Hall, who lived close to Lecato, that boasted about a spirit blow he gave Patrick Manning, he allowed his friends in Massey large amount of foreign exchange so they could go to Miami for seance and white light and bush bath and so. I call on the central bank governor tonight. I call on the central bank governor tonight to launch a very serious inquiry into the complaints made by that shareholder of Massey. Because this is not $2, this is not $10. This is millions of foreign exchange that is very scarce, is being utilized in a very surreptitious and ritualistic way at the detriment of citizens who have genuine, legitimate, and above-board business to conduct that need foreign exchange as well. But you see, I know that the friends of this government have always been abusing the foreign exchange. That is nothing new to me. The manufacturing sector in this country, or the pseudo manufacturing sector in this country, are very, very guilty of that. Very, very guilty they are. So guilty is the pseudo, yes, and that is what I wish to call them, the pseudo manufacturing sector, because they pretend that things are manufactured here. That is what they do. They pretend that. They put their name, they print the packages, and they mark made in Trinidad and so. When the reality is that all they do is package and label. They manufacture nothing. They package and they label. And a large chunk, in fact, the majority chunk of the foreign exchange is whittled away to them under the guise that they are manufacturers. When in fact what they do, they import ketchup, they import mustard, they import milk, they import snacks, they import nuts, they import everything, package it, and put made in Trinidad. And billions of foreign exchange reserves is expended on that deception. And that deception is known to the government. That deception is known to the Ministry of Trade. That deception is known to all. But nobody will say nothing about it because they are the government friends. They are the government financiers. So nothing would be said about it. But when the government friends and the government financiers start using the scarce foreign exchange to go Miami for bush bath and seance and talking to the dead and white light and to buy Kananga water and asafoetida oil, I have a problem with that. I have a serious problem with that. Because it is at the detriment and to the detriment of students, persons who need medical attention, etc. So I condemn the government. I condemn those involved in that very, 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 very troubling matter. I condemn them. The second issue I wish to raise is that concerning the murders in Tobago. Let me declare my interest. I wish to declare my interest in one of the murders. And my interest in one of the murders are in so far that it occurred is that Janelle Thomas Stow is my first cousin, and well, we know the story. She was brutally brutalized, and of course she succumbed to the brutality. And then of course, well, I don't know the others, but my sympathies, of course, go out to the family and friends of the two guys that were killed. I'm advised somewhere in Bonaccord on the Milford Road area. So there are 2 points I wish to raise with that. And if the reports are to be believed in my cousin's instance, I'll deal with that first. If the reports are to be believed, then that is not a law enforcement problem. Because every time a woman gets killed in Trinidad and Tobago, and in this case, this one is home to me, it's close to me, it's first cousin, and we were very close. But every time a woman gets killed in Trinidad and Tobago, my mind run back to a Sunday morning. I was living in Belmont. Young fella. I think I might have been in John Lee at the time. Could have been at John Lee at the time. But I was a young fella. Came from a very popular pub, Metal House. It was on Ryson Road. Bathed. Sat outside to smoke a cigarette. As I was about to pull the door, I heard, boop, kill me, but I still love you. Boop, kill me, I still love you. And so I peeped around to see what was going on. And I saw a woman lying on the ground with a man over kicking her. And every time he kicked her, she cried out, kill me, but I still love you. And it went on for a while as if we didn't know it was. But the noise, that thud, every time I hear a woman get killed in Trinidad and Tobago, that thud resonate back in my mind. It was like a serial solo, like beating a bag of unhusked rice to help with hulling. Well, I intervened. Of course. I intervened. There was another time I went to Canaan and saw a close relative in a brawl with her husband. He beat her with a broomstick, and so with the broom I beat her with the stick, and so. And so, of course, I was there with other relatives, and of course we intervened. We were young, so of course we intervened with retaliation and so in mind. And that female relative position was, if they hit you, I go inside and bring a cutlass for you and chop up their ass and throw them in Killigrew and I go witness for you. That too never escaped my mind. I raise those matters because I want to say without any fear of retaliation or contradiction that women must stop declaring love for men who hit them, beat them, and are likely to maim them or kill them. And I don't know if this is a law enforcement problem, since policemen and army men and prison officers and Coast Guard men, they are often perpetrators of this disaster. not to veer or stray too far away from the subject matter. I listened to Earl Christopher and her nonsense, repeating, of course, Jacob and his nonsense, and repeating a long line of commissioner of police and their nonsense. And nonsense is not the word I want to use, but it's a word I'm allowed to use on television. About this horrors of issuing firearms to citizens to protect themselves. And I raised that in the context with Gary Griffith, Commissioner of Police, who made a clarion call to all women in Trinidad and Tobago so qualified within meaning of the Firearm Act to go and get yourself trained and licensed and purchase your weapon for the purpose of defending yourself. He was condemned for it. And the condemnation by Earl Christopher and MacDonald Jacob and Messrs. Fitzgerald Hines and Keith Rowley and a whole host of ignoramuses were too much gun in the society and the society angry. And to give women gun, women are too emotional. Women go use the gun and shoot a man if he go by outside woman. They say I was not surprised to hear that from this government. Because we have a prime minister who say they're not rushing to fix the boat because they don't want people to catch the boat and go to Tobago with their outside women. They didn't fix a boat. They didn't fix a boat. But that I kid you not. We have a prime minister who told this nation they did not fix one of the inter-island ferry. And they're not rushing to fix it. Because men in Trinidad to catch the boat and go to Tobago with their outside woman. That was the government reason. That was this Rowley-led government reason for not fixing a boat, like the island ferry, so important to the transportation matters and subject, surrounding subject and so, with connecting the island and trade and goods and services and free movement and so. They say they're not fixing it because men go to be with outside women. Well, this same government said they give women guns to defend themselves. They go shoot men when they go by outside women. That kind of thinking is Jurassic and it has no place in 2023. So, but while this police service is against giving women guns, they have no problem giving policemen guns to kill women. Because they speak so much about erratic citizens and their fear of giving citizens guns because of their erratism and so. But the records and the data will reflect that more women in this country have become victims of homicide and brutality by policemen with police service guns. Two, not one, two occurred at the police service headquarters. Not one, two occurred at the police service headquarters. So, to veer back to the subject matter. So they oppose giving women guns to defend themselves. They said, well, no, they'll give them pepper spray. Where's the permit? Where do you apply? Nothing have taken place about that. There's plenty old talk, old talk, old talk, old talk, old talk. While we have now a large host of abused women living daily in fear with no real protection. So nobody knows when a man in relationship with a woman will kill a woman. Nobody knows that. And so it is not the state business to be peeping through people's bedroom windows. But it is the state business to equip a large amount of their vulnerable and weak, I know some women will take issue at this, but let me talk my talk. You could criticize and share your other view. But the state has a responsibility to protect its vulnerable and weaker citizens. And I subscribe to the Gary Griffiths position to have women, especially victims of domestic violence, trained mentally, physically, and armed to protect themselves. I have no difficulty with that whatsoever. Because it's a foolish myth. It's a foolish myth to think that every woman with a gun, whether abused or not, would be so erratic and emotional that they'll shoot down the place every time they're upset or they feel a man horn them or they see lipstick on a man's clothes. That is nonsense, and there is no data to support that bull tale. Yeah, bull tale. No data whatsoever. Absolutely no data to support that nonsense. And so I disagree strongly with those that spew that nonsense. There's no data to support that. The shelters in this country for battered women, women who suffer abuse and so, they are non-existent. I didn't say that. It's the minister responsible for that. Ayanna Webster Roy said that. I did not say that. In fact, women are being abused in this country on a daily basis in large numbers, right? On a daily basis in large numbers, women are being abused in this country. And in response to domestic violence, Ayanna Webster Roy collected some, what let's call it, stay-free pads. No, it haven't. Stay-free napkins. Look, I think you all know what I'm talking about. I hope you know what I'm. Ayanna Webster Roy have collected that stay-free pads from the Chinese embassy to share to women who are victims of domestic violence. Stay-free pads. This is a serious country with serious problems, and we need serious people to fix it. So that is the long and short of that. I think we need to stop beating around the bush and discriminate positively for women who are victims of domestic violence. Have them trained mentally, have them trained physically. Yeah, little karate, little defending yourself with martial arts and self-defense and so. You have them trained mentally to be strong, so they're not easily broken, they're not easily angered and so. So you have them trained mentally, you have them trained physically, and allow them the option to apply for a firearm to defend themselves. I have no objection to that. I think it's a modern way to intervene, and those are my thoughts on that. Concerning the other two guys that have been shot, I don't know what the facts are. I read somewhere loosely that it may be gang related, but I do not know what the facts are. I must admit, I don't know anybody in a gang. I see most of them on television at the I don't know anybody in a gang, I must admit. And those who I believe to be in a gang, I see them every Thursday at the cabinet press briefing. That's where I see them. Those who I believe to be in gangs, that is where I see them at the cabinet press briefing on Thursdays. And if that is to be believed, because the data will show, and verily advise and verily believe same, to support the data that can be shown that this issue of gang warfare have really, really crept into Tobago. I don't think that was the first drive-by shooting that ever took place in Tobago. And unless it is seriously dealt with, I suspect it may not be the last. I don't know what intervention is needed, but I have some thoughts. I'm not in the matter of policing, but I have some thoughts on what some of the intervention may be. Certainly, and without any doubt in my mind whatsoever, the intervention cannot be Sheriff Hazel. And I have nothing against Collis Hazel personally. In fact, I dare say I can describe Collis Hazel to be a friend. But however, friend or not, I think some on his recent tour to Tobago, when initially in the early period of his tour, there was a murder, I think, in Mount Pleasant area or so, if my memory helps me well. And he declared that there's a new sheriff in town, and he called on the perpetrators to surrender themselves in, I think it was 24, 48 hours. But surrender themselves, and he gave some time period, man, a very short period. They must surrender themselves, and so. And after that, I think what the perpetrator did was commit a next murder within the same time period. Nobody have been held, nobody was arrested, nobody was charged. But after Sheriff Hazel declared war about the new sheriff in town and things are going to be done differently, and he warned those perpetrators, surrender yourself or else. After all of that, not a drum was heard, not a funeral note. You see, because grandstanding cannot confront and will not combat crime. And if we have this gang culture extending its tentacles into Tobago, then we have a problem. Then we have a serious problem. And the problem we have is that it means, one, we do not control or influence the narrative of our young ones anymore. Now, one. Two, it means that whatever methods were used before that gave this cultural oversight and control and guidance and embrace and so. In other words, that we had, what were done before, why we did not have these things, these challenges of gang warfare and drive-by shooting and the scourge of drug sale retaliations and so. Why we have this going on, it means that two things. Whatever were done before, why it was not taking place, either need to be returned quickly or it have become redundant. So those are things that need to be assessed. And the Sunday school teacher in the village, not necessarily the church. When I was a young fella, I used to go to Sister Mac's. Sister Mac, as we call her Sister Mac, and Sister Ruby, Sunday school downstairs, Sister Mac house. I went primarily and on most occasions singularly for Sister Ruby's guava cheese. She had a guava cheese. They used to share guava cheese and juice. I really went for that. But while there, I learned some things, right? I learned a lot of things about morals and this sort of thing. Where did this problem start? When have the disconnect began? When did the disconnect begin? When it began? Was it on the way to school? Was it at the school? Is it in the home? Because I want to tell you something. I want to tell you something. Most of these young fellas in Tobago there, creating the challenge we now have, they are darlings and angels at home. They don't still tie out sheep. They still rake up yard. They're still going to shop for their mother. They are darling and angels at home. But they are monsters outside of the home. Because what you have now is I'm just gazing to look at the time because I wish to finish at 9 p.m. tonight. What you have is a generational divide. I don't know, for many generations, there was always this, not transcend is the word I want to use. The word escaped me, but there was always this handing down of the cultural requirements, what you expected from the society, what society expects from you. So, there's always this moral and cultural hand down. We need to start to look at what generation have the disconnect begun. Was it a case of new cultural delinquency invading our space, pushing aside most of our cultural antecedents, and it became so fancy that it took root? Was it a case that we were sowing dragon's teeth all the time? Was it a case that we were riding the tiger's back and now the tiger is turning around to feed? But we have to find out what the problem is. And I'll tell you what one of those problem may be. And I want to use these words. I'm going to use them very uniquely but carefully. Because I'm choosing these words. So if I talk slow, it's because I'm thinking. We take the boy who snatched a purse from a tourist. And as the village, we use the culture that, no, thou must not thief, steal, and so you're thief, and they trash you down and they crash you down, and there is no return for you. This society, we will banish you forever and ever. Amen. And there are no more opportunities for you, no second chances. And we take those hardline approaches, right? For delinquency. That is one of the words I want to use. I want you to follow me with this. So we take hardline approach on issues of delinquency. Not recalcitrant. Not recalcitrance, sorry. Delinquency. I want you to hear that. Underscore that word. So we treat delinquents by sending them almost immediately. We condemn them for certain immediately. And then they go to the prison. But the prison in Tobago is designed to hold 26 persons. Well, 26 inmates. So, at the time when the prison were managed by Tobago leaders, so you had people like Cedric Guy, Lennox Holder, Taka, I can't remember Taka name, something McPherson, but you had Cedric Guy, McPherson, Lennox Holder. We started and we replaced the Tobago leaders. We replaced them with Trinidad leaders in the prison. And nothing is wrong with that. It's the Trinidad and Tobago prison service. So the Tobago leaders would have found time to allow the 26, okay, God is a 26 bed, at least 2 of you share the bed, sleep, head and tail. So 26 by 26, there'll be 6 and 6, 12, and 2 and 2, 4, and 1. So 52 or something. So I don't, you are that, but so you double it up, 26, 2, 2, 6, 12, 2, 4, and 1. Yeah, 56. All right, and then if you meet 70 something, then you put some mats and thing on the ground, because the idea was not to send Tobago delinquents, underscore that word, not to send those who have been delinquent against the laws and rules and so, not to send them to Trinidad. The idea was to keep them in Tobago. While they're here in Tobago, they still you go and clean the cemetery here, you go in a village, you cut down some bush behind a old man house, you go and clean up a old woman yard. Um, so there always is out gangs going through the island and doing work and so. Always that. There was a family visit. There was these unapproved, unsupported, unapproved, unsupported, unfinanced projects in the prison. Somebody family might have 2 sheep. They bring one of the sheep and say, well, let them mine it and thing. They come when they're ready to breed the sheep, bring it now, breed it. Somebody might bring 2 rabbit. And so you have this little farming, initiatives and thing. Around Bacalet, there next to Miranda, they are the garden and so there. So there's always that interaction with the Tobago community and so. Then we stop that. And we start sending, as soon as you meet 26, Trinidad for you. Trinidad, 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 Trinidad. So we took delinquents and we send them Trinidad and we send them Trinidad where they found space, confidence, and acquaintance with the recalcitrant. So in Tobago, our delinquents there in Tobago, while they're in the prison, they will compare notes about who from which village and who line which girl there and who used to be down there. I know that my family and when me and his cousin, and those are the kind of conversation. They go to Trinidad where the conversation is who rape who. And if you on bail when you go out or you do something for me, pass by John, he go give 5,000. Then pass by Harry and collect a gun or you shoot the witness. So the discussions in Port of Spain prison, in Golden Grove, in maximum security in Carrera is a different discussion to the Tobago discussion. So when you take delinquents, send them to meet the recalcitrant, who you think they're meeting down there? They are meeting persons who are entrenched in gangs, whether as suppliers of guns, as shooters, as leaders, as deputy leaders, as hitmen, as money launderers, as drug dealers. You take them from primary school level in crime and you drop them flush into university level of crime in Trinidad. And then they are discharged with a new network of criminals. In Tobago, the thief from Goodwood, you chat with the thief from Mount Pleasant. And with some intervention, they may come out and go their separate ways unless they join a church together. Best case scenario. Or they get a job in the URP or something together. Worst case scenario is that they may abandon all the attempts to reform and lecture and teach and join and go and break a house together. That's the worst case scenario. When you send them to Trinidad, there's only worst case scenario. And the worst case scenario is that they're not discussing who sell weed and who thief pus and who thief tape deck from can. They're not discussing that. In Trinidad, the crime level is different. So they have a new group of friends. And so when those friends come out from Trinidad, to stay low, to regroup, to recover, they come to Tobago. And of course, we are Tobagonians, we all embracing, we all welcoming a whole group of recalcitrant criminal. And so the opportunities these recalcitrant criminals will see in Tobago, which is like soft zone for them, we are reaping those rewards now in massive drug deals and drive-by shooting, and that is what it is about. And that seed was sown when we started sending inmates from Tobago to Trinidad. I want to call on the authorities today to make arrangement, for too long it have been on the budget, to build the Tobago prison. That is one. And two, I see all these fabulous advances and so made in agricultural matters and so in Tobago. I compliment Tadco, I compliment the Secretary for Food Production and so, Miss Panton. Yeah. But I'm not going to forgive them if they squander the opportunity to engage, because I want to tell you something. The prisons in Tobago, I interviewed the Commissioner of Prison sometime last year. I was at Power 102 then, so maybe last year or the year before. And one of the things he said is that he wants to use the Tobago prison as a model rehabilitation center. So you keep the prisoners from Tobago up there, right? Set it up nice. But the prison is not going to be a storeroom to house bodies every day. They go out to the communities, they do work, they engage in work, clean the churchyards, clean the cemetery. Those who are so qualified will get an opportunity to go to school. Yeah. Come out of the prison, press the buzzer, you go to school, you sit in your classroom, you learn things. Because the idea was, it's about reintegrating those prisoners, because when they leave there, they have to return back to the same society where they came from. Prison is not Hotel California where you could check in and don't check out. You have to check out. That is not your address. You have to check out and go back home. And there's so much manpower there. And in Tobago, there's so much land and so much need for food production. Is it too much to ask the Division of Agriculture to partner with the prison that here in Tobago that houses Tobagonians and engage in some model cooperative project with them? They plant food, they sell it to Tadco, then they have their own savings, and so when they leave, they have some money where they could start their life over and this other. Those are very serious, and I don't have enough time to get into those details, but I raise those matters, I raise those matters in summary and point forms, that there are things we could look at. So we want to know why we have drive-by shootings. I just told you. It started when we started sending delinquents here from Tobago to meet recalcitrant prisoners in Trinidad. Now, those were fancy terms. In other words, my friends, what we did was we sent petty criminals here from Tobago to meet hardened, evil criminals in Trinidad. And they merged. They invited them to Tobago. They came to Tobago, saw great opportunities for crime, drugs, shootings, mayhem, and that's what we're reaping there now. How can we avoid it? How can we avoid it? Not by condoning wrongdoing of delinquents, but certainly making serious and conscious efforts to give them every opportunity for their rehabilitation. And I suspect the prison service there in Tobago is only waiting for somebody to press the buzzer and said, I'm here to partner with some rehabilitation efforts. So perhaps a show in the future, I'll commit my time to speaking with the Commissioner of Prisons, and we'll invite them and so to the show. This may be my last show doing it here from home. So we'll have studio room, and so we're sure we could invite some stakeholders in this matter. But until and unless we seriously deal with the Tobago prison issue and how we rehabilitate offenders in Tobago, as long as we continue shipping them off to Trinidad to interact and be trained and become close and friends with hardened criminals, then hard crime will come our way, right? So It's 9 o'clock. I know I wanted to share my thoughts on the second anniversary of the Executive Council. It's 9 o'clock, and I gave a commitment to finish at 9 because I have another engagement that is a bit serious, and so I don't want to talk about that next week, Wednesday, Christmas time. I didn't want to talk about this approaching Christmas, but it was necessary to discuss it. So I think first show New Year's, yeah? First show New Year. I think we'll do that. First show New Year, God being our helper, all things meaning God, God spare life, first show New Year, then yeah, we could properly sit down and at least say what I think. I'll share my thoughts on what I think the 2 years were like, and certainly share my thought on where I think the Executive Council ought to go in the new year coming, right? So, shalom, good night, assalamu alaikum, sitaram, God bless you, until we see again.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are those of the commentators, guest, and host. They do not explicitly or necessarily reflect nor represent the policy or the views held by Tobago Updates or this network. Tobago Updates or this network cannot be held accountable for all or any views expressed during this program.